Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the world of the International Fab Talks. We are happy to connect with several professionals and various other individuals across India and the world as well. We get to learn a lot. We get to learn many things which we don't know. A lot of awareness is being created on various podcasts, including ours, the International Fab Talks. And today, it's a privilege to have the special presence of a great personality who's here to empower us in the right way. We believe in empowerment. If you feel that you've done your very best over the few decades that you've survived on this planet, it's time to share it with the younger generation. And hence, we have our celebrity guest who has agreed to share his time here with us to create awareness and to bring about a change, the right kind of change that is necessary in this 21st century. So join us, friends, to welcome our special celebrity guest. He's none other than Dr. Gautam Machaya, joining us all the way from Bengaluru, Karnataka, India. He's going to empower us and treat us in the right way with the right tips on how to continue our journey. We're going to focus on journalism. Many of us don't know it exactly in what way we should take it forward, including me. I would love to learn more. You be hungry for learning and definitely your life will be better. Hello, sir, and welcome to the session. Thank you so much, Dr. Gautam, for being here with us. It's a privilege to have you here. Namaskara.
Thank you, Andrea. A pleasure to be on your show.
Thank you so much, sir. It's really an honor to have you here. And I'm really excited because I'm really happy to know more about journalism. Not only happy, interested. And like me, I think there are several other individuals who want to know more about what work you do and how you've been overtaking all the challenges that has come in your professional journey till date. I go ahead and share your profile and we begin the journey.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir. So dear friends, as I do that always, I share the profiles of all our celebrity guests. And today we have the presence of none other than Dr. Gautam Machaya. He's here. He's a beautiful personality within and out as well. That is, when you speak to him, you'll get to know he's a warm, down-to-earth person, very professional in all the undertakings that he has undertaken till date, like in whatever work he's been doing. Now, you must be wondering as to what sir has been doing all these years. To put it very briefly, Dr. Gautam Machaya has completed his PhD and he is the media industry leader, one of the media industry leaders and very prominent and plays a very important role in his domain. And he's also a senior journalist. To add more to his profile, I'd love to go deeper. Dr. Gautam Machaya is a seasoned media industry leader and a senior journalist. Close to 3 decades, that is almost 25 years above. Close to 3 decades of experience in driving strategic innovation and growth across India's premier media houses, including the print media, the electronic media, and of course, the digital platforms. As Executive Vice President and Business Head of Z Entertainment Enterprises, Dr. Gautam successfully turned around 3 loss-making channels in the South. That's great, significantly boosting viewership and revenue. With a unique blend of experience in both news, content, and management, he played a pivotal role and is still playing a great role in the relaunch of many important things connected to the industry of journalism, or you say the media houses. And to be very precise or maybe more particular, he focused his energies in relaunching of the Indian Express and the Times of India in Bengaluru. That's really nice. He played an important role in the relaunch of the Indian Express and the Times of India in Bengaluru. As I earlier mentioned, he has completed his PhD from the University of Mysore and is a certified independent director. Now we'll get to know more about it. What were the tough challenges he had to face? Is it easy being a journalist? Is it easy being where he is today? I'm sure it is not, but he is a strong person. He's a warrior, in fact. To come close to 3 decades in the same profession is not an easy task. It takes a lot of grit and determination. Let's get to know all of that. And if you'd love to be a journalist, if you'd love to be in the space where we all are, this session is for you. Dr. Gautam, thank you so much for being here with us. And thank you for sharing the time with us today. The first question I'd love to ask you is, before we start off as to who is Dr. Gautam, the first question I'd like to pose is, what is journalism? You are a senior journalist. How would you define journalism for all the youngsters out there, including me and everyone?
If you have to define journalism in one line, this is someone has something to hide somewhere. That is news. The rest is advertising. So the job of a journalist is to dig out news, particularly news which somebody is trying to hide. journalism or media is also called the fourth estate or the fourth pillar of democracy. Like you have the legislature, the executive, and the judiciary. The fourth pillar of a democracy is the media, which is why we call the media the watchdog of democracy. The role of the media is to point out the mistakes of the government, to shine the torch on the mistakes of the government, and at the same time to highlight the problems of the people in general, to cover any news that is of interest to the people. But most importantly, it is to, like I said, shine the torch on the failures of the government and to get justice to the people.
That's very nice. Thank you for sharing that, sir. You've really opened our eyes because many of us don't know that it's the fourth pillar. Thank you so much. Thank you for bringing that back into our memories, or maybe bringing it to the forefront and making it clear to everyone. So, as you've mentioned, being a journalist, you have to bring out the hidden truths or those stories that are hidden, and it doesn't want to see the light. A journalist has to work to bring it out into the public domain and to bring justice, to see that justice prevails. It could either be from the private sector or the government sector or just from the common man around. We need the truth coming out in the light, right? Now, you selected this as your profession. If I may ask, if you permit me, why did you select journalism? Was it a passion for you, or did your parents or the elders in your family ask you to go into this path or walk on this path, or it was a personal calling?
Well, journalism is more of a passion than a profession. How it started was when I was in my 9th standard in school, we had an acute water scarcity in our hometown. So at that age, I wrote a letter to the Indian Express, and that letter got carried. There was no looking back after that. And, I kept writing letters. In course of time, they saw some merit in my letters. And so they carried those letters as articles. So that was the beginning. So by the time I joined college and I formally took up journalism, I had a huge file of articles. And then it so happened that, one of my big breaking stories, there was a smuggler called Veerappan in the south, in Karnataka, Tamil Nadu border. He had killed about 100 elephants. So I went to the forest as a student and I wrote a expose on him. That's how he came into the limelight. And then, of course, the rest is history. Everybody else came to know about him. There was a special task force set up until he was finally killed. So then my first job was with the Indian Express, and I started off as an education correspondent. Then I moved on to politics. And during my career as a journalist, there were several scandals that I exposed, especially political corruption. And with my colleagues, we were responsible for bringing down certain governments too in Karnataka. And then I moved on to the Times of India, where also I excelled as an investigative journalist. Then I was among the first to make a foray into digital journalism, those days way back in 2000, when Z started znext.com. And then in between, after Z, I transited into a corporate role. So like I said, of course, it's always useful to have a journalism degree, to have a master's degree, because it gives you the basics of journalism. Particularly, most importantly, it teaches you the ethics of journalism. What we see today people come to journalism not as a passion, but more as a profession. So what happens is, today we have forgotten the ethics of journalism. We have forgotten 360-degree reporting. If you listen to if you watch some news on television, if you read a newspaper, 80% of the time, you will get only one point of view. Either you're biased towards one political party or you're biased towards one issue. So today, we don't have what is called 360-degree news. You'll have to watch 2 or 3 channels to find out what exactly is the correct news. So like I said, it all boils down to being passionate and being truthful, being bold, and of course, maintaining the highest level of integrity.
Thank you, Dr. Gautam. Thank you for sharing that. When you shared it at the start, when I asked you, why did you enter into journalism? When you started off sharing that, you said that you entered into the forest as a youngster.
Yes.
I mean, did you get a chance to see Veerappan?
No, unfortunately, no. We, in fact, went to his house. But unfortunately, he was not there. Perhaps if he were there, I wouldn't be here to narrate this story.
Oh my goodness. Very true. Now, sir, see, now when you enter into this field of journalism, it could be either of the genders who come into this field. It's a risk-taking job. Do you agree?
Not exactly. Particularly in the South, it's not much of a risk, though in the North, it is to some extent. But of late, what has happened in the country is, we have lost our sense of humor. Earlier during our days, you could, criticize the politician no end, and he would take it in his stride. But today it's very, very difficult because people have become very, 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 people have lost the sense of humor. People don't know how to take a joke, and people take things very seriously. So, which is why today perhaps there is a little bit of danger to a journalist. But then during my time as a journalist, I've written about chief ministers, I've written about prime ministers. Fortunately, I've never had any threat.
You're the lucky one, or one of the lucky
Yeah.
ones, right? Because today, in today's world, it's quite difficult, as you've said, like a lot of hardships and struggles one has to face. We leave it at that. Now we talk about integrity. Now, when we enter into the domain of journalism or reporting, there has to be a lot of integrity. I believe in that. What do you have to share from your end? Because you've been working in the corporate sector as well, and you're still continuing your journey in that. So corporate integrity, or first you will explain the term integrity and then go on with corporate integrity. Over to you, sir.
In simple words, integrity is doing something right, even when nobody is watching you. Normally, people think that journalism is a field where there's a lot of integrity, where there's a lot of honesty. It is true to a large extent, but unfortunately, what has happened is we have black sheep even among journalists. Now, when I say integrity or corruption, it is not just people who take money. Even ethical integrity matters. Am I being truthful to my viewers or readers or to my listeners? Am I taking a partisan stand? Am I being honest in my reporting? Again, thankfully, in my career as a journalist, nobody's ever tried to bribe me. There was an attempt once. A chief minister had sent a suit length and a sari to my house, and I didn't accept it. There were a lot of others who did accept it. So what happens is sometimes politicians also test you out. They'll send you a small gift and say, okay, is this guy honest or corrupt? The moment you accept something like that, they know that you can be whatever. And that goes on into bigger gifts. Like, there could be cars, there could be house sites, there could be money. So corruption I wouldn't like to generalize, but corruption in journalism is real, which is why a lot of people have today started losing faith in news, which is why if you look at television news, for instance, out of the total TV viewership, only 10 to 13% watch news. Can you believe it? Just about 13% of TV viewers watch news, of which about 1 or 2% watch English news. Of course, there are different reasons. One is because you've got digital, but still the fact that, the viewership of news is going down is something very concerning. Why? That is because, you have in Karnataka and in some states, you've heard of sting operations. There are journalists who do sting operations. Like in our time, when we know about a certain politician, when there's a case of corruption, we would straight run to our offices and file a story. But today, there are many cases where when you know about certain deeds of a politician, you don't go straight to your office and file a story. You'd rather go to the politician, blackmail him, and make money. There have been several such instances, which is a disgrace. That is what I mean by lack of integrity in journalism. And you also asked me about corporate integrity. Now, we always believe, or we are always made to believe, that there is corruption only in the government, which is not true. There is acute corruption in the corporate sector also. In fact, in a particular company that I headed, my first 3 months or more went into just cleaning the system. People would make money in purchases. There are IT companies where HR heads make money out of recruitments. So it's a very sad thing that, people lack personal integrity, which ultimately pulls down the company.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much for sharing that. Thank you very much. Now, if I may ask you, like, with regard to gender, now, have many of the women or the girls entered into this field of journalism? Earlier, too, they were very good journalists. Now, in the modern days, do you think the same flow of, entering into this field is still there, or women fear to enter into the field? It could be either of the genders. Let me not be gender biased, Like, are there many people entering into this field, or are they holding back? Because there's a lot of threat to their lives as of today. Like, if they are very straightforward, you see, it's always the straight tree that is cut first. The crooked one will be cut towards the end, or it's never cut at all till it perishes away. Now, could someone who's very honest and follows all, the rules and regulations in the right way, could he or she survive in this industry? Like, I put all
Definitely.
together. So if you could
Definitely.
just...
There are many, many honest people, just like there are certain dishonest people. So, it is not right to paint everybody with the same brush. Talking of gender bias, in my entire career, whether, like I told you earlier, part of my career was in journalism, a larger part was in corporate. In both active journalism as well as in corporate, I have not seen any bias in the media industry. In fact, I would say there are some women journalists who are much, much better than the men. They work as hard as men. They work on night shifts. In fact, much before night shifts came to India in the form of maybe IT companies, women were working in night shifts in newspapers. I'm talking from 25, 30, or even many years ago. So there is absolutely no bias. They work just as hard as men. They work late into the night. I've seen women work in the middle of the night. I've seen women travel without any inhibitions. There was a time when the cameraman would be only men, the camera person would be men. Today, there are many women camera persons. They're equally good, if not better than men.
That's nice to hear. That's really nice to hear. You see, sir, I'd like to share an incident with you, a real one. While I was working for a particular institution, an academic institution, the principal of that school, I think in the 90s, early 90s, the principal of that school was accused of molesting a teacher, a newcomer. She had asked for leave or something, like she wanted a week of leave, and he disagreed to permit her to take leave for that 1 week. So there was an argument between the two, and she went and reported the matter to the police station, I guess, and to take action on him. And the next day we seen the newspaper filled, I mean, like a part was on him, like that so-and-so school, and this principal has been molesting the teacher, a newcomer, which was completely false, because we were all witness to it. Like, how can this happen? Like, I was thinking, no, you have witnessed the truth. You were there as a witness, and today the newspaper has, printed something, and we all of them got to know about it, which is not right. Why does this happen, and how does this happen, if I could ask you?
This is what I call 360-degree reporting. A newspaper, we were taught as students, should have 5 W's and 1 H. Who, what, where, why, how, when. So this is a basic principle. If you have 5 W's and 1 H, you will cover all angles of the story. Now, what happens is people have a tendency to just to talk to a particular person or carry one version of the story. You should always, whether it's a newspaper, print, or radio, or today in the digital world, you should have both sides of the stories. But today what's happened is, why do they carry only one side of the story? Because they want to sensationalize. Now you take the case of Riya Chakravarti. What happened? There were certain channels which nailed her. They called her a murderer. They accused her of murdering Sushant Rajput. But in the end, what happened? CBI gave her a clean chit. So in our quest for TRPs, in our quest for sensationalism, we often bury the truth. That could have happened in the case that you mentioned also. See, there are several cases, of course, I'm not denying it. There are cases where women are harassed at the workplace. But there are also certain cases where false complaints are filed.
For sharing that, thank you. Now, you are a media industry leader. So what is the role that you play, and how can people understand your role, like the ones who don't know about you? If you can just share that with us.
That is a wide role. You could be a leader handling certain portfolios. Like in my particular case, I was heading the south of Z. I was a business head, which means, I'm responsible both for the top line as well as the bottom line of the company. So I had three channels under me. So all these were loss-making channels. So, we succeeded. We had a good team. We succeeded in turning them from red to black to green. So when you are a leader, you will have to take care of all aspects of the business, not just the financial aspect of the business. You'll have to take care of the human, HR. You'll have to take care of marketing. You'll have to take care of the entire gamut of the business and ensure that, we meet our goals, beat the business goals, and also ensure that it's a great place to work in.
Thank you, sir, for sharing that. Thank you. Now, when we go on to the media, and we check out the different news channels, there's so much of screaming going on. You don't know what they are trying to convey to the public. Like the news person or the person, who's presenting the news, he or she wants to prove that they are right, their perspective is right, unmindful of what's the fact, what's the truth. It's like mostly like something very personal. When you check out, like it's me, I am right all the time. I am right all the time. So how would you try to explain this? Because you almost completed 25 years, like close to 30 years now. So what is the message you have for such people who just scream on top of their voice? We don't take any names. There are many channels which I view. It's better reading the newspaper than watching the news. That's what I feel. I feel that's better. So how would you like to share this from your end?
Like you rightly said, today newspapers are more credible than any other medium. Today it's a case of one-upmanship. A news anchor, most of the time, is more interested in promoting his personal brand than in conveying news. And many of these anchors are politically affiliated to one party or the other, to their point of view. Now, I always say, like I told you earlier, the role of a journalist is to dig out news. Any good journalist will always be anti-establishment because you are the watchdog of democracy. You are not supposed to be the lapdog of democracy. But today, many journalists have turned out to be the lapdog of a political party, of a government, or of a political leader. Since they have compromised their ethics, they're always forced to cover it up with their loud voice. They're forced to cover it up by spreading falsehoods. Somebody asked me my opinion on a certain journalist. So I asked him, he says, this journalist always rips the opposition apart. I said, that's not journalism. How many times has he ripped the government apart? If you are protecting the government, if you're always talking in favor of the government, what are you? You're a propaganda tool of the government. Right? You're not a journalist. You're a PR person. Like I started off, someone somewhere has something to hide. That's news. The rest is advertising. Now, are they doing news or advertising? And they keep shouting because they want their master's voice to be heard.
Thank you so much for sharing that. Now, Dr. Gautam, what I'd like to bring your notice to is the life of a journalist, to put that right, an honest journalist, is if you're very honest, it's very scary because I happen to remember now, long time back, I viewed a small clipping where I saw a huge lorry, ram itself or, go and dash that journalist somewhere in Uttar Pradesh or something, North India, because he was reporting something which was very true. Or some politician or something like that. I don't know. But I can still close my eyes and I can just see that scene of that big lorry, loaded lorry, going deep and dashing the scooter of that journalist who was on his way. We have this type of threat to the life of honest journalists. What do you have to say? And what is the courage you'd love to give to the younger ones? And now looking that at this, what I've just shared now, I wouldn't want to be on the field. I'd rather sit on, far away like this and share something than to go and do the field work. So many of them would hesitate doing the field work. You might have done a lot of field work too. Did you face any of these challenges? And what is the message you have for the younger generation or the ones who are already doing the field work?
See, these kind of incidents, they're not an everyday occurrence. In fact, if you kill a journalist, you get so much of negative publicity that the advantage is lost. But there are various other ways of making a journalist shut up. One is, of course, corruption. Two is you can talk to the management, and there have been several instances where honest journalists have been told to leave. There are various other indirect means today to shut up a journalist. You don't have to kill him. And the incident that you mentioned, such incidents might happen in some parts of northern India. In south, it's rare. Like I told you, I have written about chief ministers and prime ministers, but I have never had a threat to my life. And very often, some of these politicians also, see if you're an honest journalist, if you're a man of integrity, whether stories are being planted. I have never had any instance of any politician threatening me. And after the first incident I mentioned about somebody trying to send a suit length, there has been no instance of anybody trying to bribe me also, because there's a saying, the person, what do you call it? There's a saying which says, the giver knows who the taker is. The giver knows who the taker is. So, when you know that somebody doesn't accept, whether it's in my journalistic life or in my business life, nobody's ever dared to offer me a bribe.
Thank you, Dr. Gautam, for sharing that. Now, no one has ever dared do that or come and offer you again after that something, or they don't go to the people who are very honest, or I mean, the journalists who are honest. But if they want to put you down or if they want to disgrace you, they will find different ways.
These anchors regularly pull down one another. It's not because of their loyalty to the organization. It is because, like I said, one-upmanship. So it happens in any profession. But if you mean, defaming a journalist by planting drugs or planting some evidence in his house, that normally doesn't happen. Like I said, there are many, very, many subtle ways of making a journalist silent. Like the easiest way, because many, I wouldn't say all, there are many managements which are compromised. There are many managements which have open political leanings. There are party leaders who hold media houses. So obviously, these channels have a particular leaning, and only journalists with that kind of a leaning will join that particular channel. So the question of threatening a journalist does not arise. Like I said, the government or industrialists, they have different ways of making a journalist shut up without killing him, without threatening him. They can do it through the management.
I get that. I get to understand that now. Now, you being a senior journalist, you are connected with various domains, like you've mentioned the political field just now, like you've been, covering a lot of information with regard to various chief ministers, and you've reported on various political issues, etc. Now, have you also been connected with the film stars? Have you reported on a few of them? And if yes, would you like to name the film star that you were,
No, I've never done entertainment journalism, though, I've headed an entertainment channel as the business head. So when I headed the channel, I've of course come across a lot of film actors. But then I've from the business point of view, there'd be different people dealing with these film actors. So my interaction would be mostly a courtesy chat.
You can make or break a career. The journalist or the person who's responsible for media coverage, etc. They can make or break somebody's career, especially in the film industry. So we've seen that a lot. Like if you grease their palm, everything is fine. And if you don't, it's like the other way around.
The film industry, that's true. Now, I'll go back to the Riya Chakraborty incident.
Yes, please.
And there have also been charges that, film reviews are biased. Your stars are biased. And sometimes people get impacted by these stars. You give a bad review if you are, I'm not generalizing. There are a few journalists, there have been complaints, open complaints that reviews are biased because they're either paid or they're not paid. So like you rightly said, yes, there have been several cases where certain careers have been made or broken.
you so much. Thank you so much, Dr. Gautam. That's really nice. What I'd like to ask you now is, have you been going personally into different remote areas to collect information and come? And if yes, how long was the duration? And if at all any of the younger ones who would like to go into this would have no clue about journalism, they would love to go, like, are they, what's the information I'd like to ask you? Are they being paid for their convenience, their stay, their safety? Did you have all these benefits when during your time when you were a young journalist?
Yes, since I always worked for what do you say, a major institution, a national institution like maybe Indian Express, Times, or Z, we had no constraints of money. We had our cars taking us, we stayed in good hotels, we went to rural areas. So we didn't have any such constraints. For instance, I had reported on a very senior politician who was a murder accused. So now I had all the papers, but then I couldn't believe the papers. He stayed in a remote area. So my photographer and I, we had to go to the local police station, we had to go to his house, we had to talk to the villagers, and then we had to collect all the information before publishing that story. The second time is, when you have to cover elections. Of course, today a lot of journalists might look at the TV and write the reports. But during our time, we used to go to the villages, we used to go to the constituencies. It's only when you go to a place or the crime scene, only then can you give life to a report. If you, it's easy to call up the cops and get the report on the phone, but your report will be full of life only when you go to the spot, when you see it, when you get reactions. And all big newspapers, they pay for it. You don't have to pay out of your own pocket.
Yes, doctor. Thank you, Dr. Gautam, for sharing that. Thank you very much. If somebody would ask you this question, would Dr. Gautam Machaya want to change his profession? I mean, the younger version of yourself.
Like I said, journalism is a passion. And I was in journalism as long as I enjoyed it. And I moved into corporate more as an accident. I was in Z, and there was a situation where I was handling certain corporate roles, so which is why I had to move into corporate, and there was no looking back. But then I would say I have absolutely no regrets of my days in journalism. I have absolutely no regrets about the years that I spent in journalism, both in print, electronic, and digital.
So we'd love to know about the educational system. As of what I've heard, you began as an educational correspondent. If you can share something about the educational sector and what is the role that you initially played and how did you bring things, to the front, or, you made it clear to everyone that this is what it is and this is what I am presenting to the world.
Normally in the media, education is considered a very light beat. So since I was a new journalist, since I was a budding journalist, I was allotted a soft portfolio called like education. But then I realized that there are several stories in education also. There are several instances of corruption, politics within education. And I used to joke, that there is much more politics in the corridors of the university than in the corridors of power. And we also made education reporting student-centric. Our thought was that every house has a student, or everybody knows a household which has a student. So we extensively covered, examination dates, the last dates for submitting applications, the common entrance test, the medical test, engineering test. So which is why we saw a lot of traction when I was in Indian Express, a lot of traction to education reporting. And though so many years have passed and so many years down the line, a lot of people still remember me as an education correspondent. A lot of people still talk of the stories that I broke as an education correspondent. Then, of course, like I said, I moved on to politics. There are a lot of politicians who remember me as a political journalist, as a political correspondent, but many more people remember me as a person who got education reporting to the forefront.
if you can give us a clear picture or one or two incidents or something connected with your stint as an educational correspondent. Any example or something which you can, because people remember you a lot as an educational correspondent or as an educational journalist, to put that right. So can you give me some example or something like that?
It's all, a kind of history. But one story that is on top of my mind is called the Grace Mark scandal. It broke out in a very, very weird way. What happened was there was a contact of mine who had gone to the registrar evaluations cabin. So he found the chair a bit dusty. So he picked up some paper which was on the ground and he wiped the chair. And he just read the paper. It turned out to be something which was explosive. What the university had done was they had granted grace marks to 137 failed medical students. That came to be known as the 137 scandal or the grace marks scandal. So this particular gentleman, he came and gave me the piece of paper. Then I did my investigation and I found that it was true. And what had happened was, normally when the policy decision is taken, it will be announced before the examination. This was after the examinations were over. So it gave rise to suspicion that grace marks were awarded to promote the children of maybe certain influential people or certain politicians. Then the investigations led to engineering and dental. And we found that, hundreds of students had been passed. Failed. Imagine doctors who have failed are being passed by awarding grace marks. That led to a judicial inquiry, which is very rare in the education field. And it also led to the resignation of a couple of senior officers and a vice chancellor.
Like it's like you're filling your pockets, not only your pockets, you're also enabling the hospital in which you are working, the corporate hospital, to earn a lot. Now, this is one truth that is hitting India very badly. I don't know about other countries. In India, my near and dear ones have faced it a lot. And they have shared their experiences with me. Unnecessarily operations were conducted. Now, have anybody known to you or you yourself investigated this area where doctors take undue advantage of their innocent patients?
True. But of course, there are also many good doctors. But again, like journalism, like I told you, journalism is no longer a service, it's become a profession. So medicine also is no longer a service, it's become a profession. And now once a person has spent crores of rupees, his intent is to recollect that money. Again, let me be very, very clear. I'm not generalizing. And I've got personal experience of this because I was on the board of directors of a very prominent healthcare group. And I could not stay there for long, and I quit in a couple of months. So the strategies convert an outpatient into inpatient, convert an inpatient into surgery. And what you're saying is right. There are very many cases where, they say there are complaints that surgeries have been conducted where it is not required. But again, let me not generalize. There are some very good doctors, and they say, doctor is equivalent to God. Now, to give you another side of the story, somewhere in the 90s, there was something called the kidney scam. All the newspapers then wrote hundreds of articles about how doctors were stealing kidneys. How, somebody had gone to donate blood and the doctor stole his kidney and sent it to Dubai. Several prominent doctors were arrested. It so happened that the crime reporter then, I was not into crime reporting, he had gone on leave. So my chief reporter, he said, why don't you take over crime for a few days? So I said, let me investigate the story. All the crime reporters all along, they were getting the version of only the police. But I went to the doctors. When I went to the doctors and did my investigation, what I found was it is impossible medically to steal a kidney without a person's knowledge. You'll have to do a lot of culture tests. It's not that, there is X and Y. Y comes from somewhere, gives you money, and you just steal his kidney. I wrote a lot of medical stories, and I wrote why kidney can't be stolen. What perhaps happened at some point was they'd get somebody from some village and say, we'll pay you 1 lakh for your kidney. They cheated him. They paid him 10,000 rupees. But it is impossible to steal kidneys. It's impossible to take kidneys to Dubai and transplant it there. That was a major story. And even to this day, doctors are very, very grateful to me. Even to this day, a lot of nephrologists, including some top nephrologists of Karnataka, say, you saved us a couple of years ago. So there are two sides to the story.
Many thanks for sharing that, Dr. Gautam. As you mentioned, police just a few seconds ago, in many cases, the police system, is corrupt. Not all the police officers, a few of them are corrupt. There are many of them who are corrupt, who are forced to be corrupt either by the government or, there must be some rich person who wants the police to be hand in glove with whatever's not okay or whatever's wrong, to save them or save their reputation. Now, have there been journalists who have tried to put out the hiring police personnel, put them like on the public domain and say that this particular police personnel isn't upright and honest?
There have been many cases, but again, in all cases of corruption, there is very little proof because nobody takes or gives a receipt. So in case of inefficiency, a lot of police officers have been written about, they've been reported about, but it's very difficult to pinpoint a case of corruption. You can generally say that this officer is corrupt. There is, if you look at the prosecution in corruption cases, it's hardly 3 to 5% because, like I said, nobody gives a receipt when he receives money.
Yes, sir.
But inefficiencies of the police, yes, they have been very well reported and documented.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for sharing that. Now, Dr. Gautam, what I'd like to ask you is see, when you enter into this field of, being a journalist, you have to face the most difficult challenges. It could be field work. It could be meeting different types of people, the good, the bad, and the ugly, the best, the beast, everyone, you see. So do you all take care to do you all take personal care or take some type of precautions to save your family members? Because, I'm scared if at all anyone in my home was a journalist or would have been a journalist. Like I would have been scared, like what would happen to their family, or, the temper may not be shown towards the journalist. Maybe somebody will try to attack their family members or try to, disrupt their family life. Like, if I'm okay asking this, because that's something came out just from my,
like I said earlier, I have never faced this issue.
But do others face it? Like, have you seen your colleagues?
Not many in at least in the South, not many have faced this problem. Maybe in some areas of North, this problem is prevalent. But then, like I said earlier, there's no need to attack a journalist. There are different ways. Like today, you can file hundreds of cases against him in different places. You can influence the management to sack him. There are different ways to silence a journalist without physically intimidating or exterminating him.
Many of them are not aware of what you just shared. See, even I am not aware of what you just shared. I thought they will just try to harm you physically. But as you've mentioned, there are different ways to silence a journalist. A honest one, of course.
Yeah.
Honest one. So would you like to go deep and speak about Siddharamaia's governance of Karnataka with regard to Karnataka? Are you comfortable sharing something from your end? You're most welcome. I'll leave it out.
That depends on which side of the fence you are in. Siddharamaiya, I've reported Siddharamaiya for many, many years. Though, like I told you, I'm not an active journalist now. I know Siddharamaiya from the times he was wearing a pair of trousers before he changed his attire. He's now, maybe because of age or whatever reason, he's become a bit lackluster in his current rule. But otherwise, he's a very, very grounded politician. He was a shepherd who did not go to school till about, I think, till he was 10 years old or more. He directly got admitted to the 5th standard or something like that. And he's a very grounded politician. He's very, very strong when it comes to finances. And he was the first finance minister, maybe about 20 years ago, to present the state's first revenue surplus budget. But I do see a difference between the Siddharamaiya of a couple of years ago and Siddharamaiya of now. He appears to be a bit jaded, a bit tired. because he's in the last leg of his politics. But what you have to admire is his connect with the people. Today, I would say if there's one leader who has mass connect with the people, the topmost leader with mass connect with the people in Karnataka is Siddaramaiah. Nobody can beat him now, at least at this point in time.
That's very nice to share something very positive on that note. That's really nice. Now, sir, I'd like to ask you, like when you find yourself in a tough spot when you're talking to somebody with regard to your work, like how do you try to, make them start speaking out? Because many of them won't reveal things when you're like, taking down information or collecting information. You will not get it easily from that particular space or zone or individual. What are the tips you have to share with our viewers? Like, how do you do it? How do you try to get information? Do you get it directly from the concerned person, or do you collect it from the people around him or her, or from that particular space?
No, in journalism, a lot of people may believe that, you just go into the field and you get a story. It doesn't happen that way. Over the years, you cultivate relationships with people. Now, you can go and perhaps interview the chief minister or the prime minister, but there is a difference between an interview which is conducted by somebody who doesn't know them or somebody who has built a rapport with them over a period of time. And when you build, for instance, when I mentioned about a murder story involving a politician, so it was given to me by a policeman. And that policeman did not walk into me one day and give me those papers. I had cultivated a relationship with him over the years. Why did he give it to me and not to any other journalist? Because they perhaps did not cultivate that kind of a relationship with him. So what is very, very important is to have a very good rapport, more than relationship, a very good rapport with your sources. At the same time, you should also have a dividing line. Your rapport, your relationship should not convert to a friendship where instead of exposing him, you start protecting him. That dividing line is very, very important.
That's really nice. Thank you for sharing that. Would you like to share something about independent journalism? What is independent journalism? Because nowadays I see many of them not being a part of the corporate zone. They have branched out. I mean, they've moved out, and they have started on independent journalism, and that's quite healthy. I feel personally. I would like to know your view on that.
No, there are so many journalists. There are several journalists who have, like I mentioned, who have been forced to resign. I don't want to take names, but they've all become independent journalists. Today, thanks to the digital platform, independent journalists have a voice. Today, I, as a viewer or a listener or a consumer, have the benefit of listening to an independent voice, which was not available earlier. Earlier, something was being forced down my throat. I had to watch certain channels, read certain newspapers, and that was the news or views that I would get. Today, I have the benefit of listening to something that's I'm not saying that all independent journalists are really independent, but at least I have the benefit of listening to or watching all sides of the news, a 360 degree of news.
Thank you, Dr. Gautam. Thank you for sharing your expertise on that. With regard to the defense of our country,
defense,
you could say, like intelligence, like sharing of intelligence or getting intelligence. I mean, in the right kind of intelligence too. Or maybe honey traps, all of these things, like are people able to report it in the right way? So can you talk about journalism connected to the defense sector of our country?
So I've never done defense journalism, and it's a very sensitive area because, very often you'll have to conceal more than you can reveal because a lot of information that you put out in the public domain could actually be helping the enemy country.
Very true.
So you'll have to tread very, very cautiously. But again, since I've not done defense journalism, I wouldn't like to venture into that area. But you mentioned a very interesting point of honey trap, which is very, very prevalent in a state like Karnataka. Forget defense journalism. It was earlier very prevalent in Russia. What would happen is, they would honey trap politicians, ministers, ambassadors. It is very, very common. Now, honey trap has become a business in Karnataka. What happens? There is a small gang. They'll send a lady to a particular minister. They will record it. And then they'll start blackmailing that particular minister. Today in Karnataka, there are at least a dozen politicians who have gone to the court and got an injunction against the release of these tapes. But my point is, one is, yes, of course, honey trapping is bad. It's a crime to do this. But why are you getting honey trapped? What happened to your morals and ethics when you were getting honey trapped? So both are a crime. The person who is orchestrating honey traps, as well as the person who is getting trapped. Because when you get trapped, you don't know what kind of state secrets you have leaked to them. You don't know what kind of compromises you've undertaken. You must have given them a contract. Forget, being blackmailed and paying them some money. You must have given them a government contract. You must have revealed certain state secrets. So honey trapping is one of the biggest threats now, which is, right in the open in Karnataka.
I guess here integrity plays an important role. No matter who you are, what position you hold, either a position in the political circles or the government, or maybe in a private sector, integrity plays an important role. As we mentioned earlier, you mentioned that.
That's the foundation of any profession.
Very true. I really like this. Integrity is the foundation of any profession. And I'll add one more, even in your personal lives, it's good to be honest, good to be open and true and solve the problem than to have things done behind your back. Fine. So we don't go deep into that. That becomes another conversation. So what I'd like to now know is, like, how do you de-stress from all of this? Because it's not easy to do what you are doing. It's not easy for a journalist to do what he or she is doing. So how do you de-stress, or how one should de-stress? Let's be more general on this.
One of the best ways of de-stressing, which I followed for many, many years, is a walk. I do walk a lot. And of course, meditation. When I say meditation, I don't do any complicated way of meditation. I just I like being alone. So that's an art that you have to develop. You should enjoy your own company. There is a story of a saint who was on a mountain, who spent years and years together. A king always wanted to meet him, but he refused an audience. So one fine day, the king convinces him and he goes to the mountain top. So the king asked that sage, don't you get bored sitting alone all your life? He said, all these years, I enjoyed my own company. But now that you're here, I'm feeling bored. So in life, it's very important to enjoy your own company. And that is meditation.
Hats off to you
and
for sharing.
Walk, of course. Walk really helps you de-stress.
Thank you so much. Hats off to you. Sorry for interrupting. Hats off to you for sharing that. Walking is very good. And apart from that, you should learn to be happy with your own company. It gives you a lot of peace. You get to understand yourself much better. Yes, enjoy the solitary moments. It's not loneliness. It's enjoying the solitary moments and trying to understand yourself better. You become a great observer, a great thinker when you spend time alone with yourself. Of course, don't forget to love your friends, your family, and the community at large. So before we sum up, what I'd like to focus your attention on is, what role are the journalists playing as of today with regard to cybercrime? Every day when I open the newspaper, at least minimum 1, maximum 2 incidents of cybercrime. Lakhs of rupees have been siphoned off from the accounts of innocent, gullible victims. It could even be somebody from the CBI. It could be somebody from the intelligence department as well, being foolishly, trapped in the name of love or in the name of a relationship. I wouldn't want to go deep into that. Or, just buying stocks, or it could be like investment and all of that. So what is the message you have for all of the journalists and all of the people, not only journalists, how to stay safe from the cyber criminals?
No, in fact, coincidentally, I moderated a session on cybercrime for the police recently.
Oh, wow.
One of the basic factors is human greed. Everybody wants to make quick money, which is why we fall prey to these kind of traps. Second is foolishness. And yes, I agree with you. Media has a major role to play in educating the people not to fall into such traps. In fact, at least where Karnataka is concerned, there are a lot of reports on cybercrime, how, you have these FedEx crime or the BSNL crime, how they try to con you. The latest thing is digital arrest. So almost every day there are reports on that, but still I don't know why people fall into these traps. One is, of course, people are, but again, what happens is, today the consumption of news, as I said, has gone down. Very few people read newspapers, very few people watch TV. So, which is why perhaps a lot of people are not even aware of these frauds taking place. And the police is also doing a lot. In fact, the cops were telling me that they've in Karnataka alone, they've trained 45,000 cops in cybercrime. So the police and the government, both at the center and state, have taken it very, very seriously. And in the coming days, the legacy crimes or the brick and mortar crimes like pickpockets, murders, they're going to be less because you can steal somebody sitting in your in your house. So which is why the only thing that has to be done is awareness. Media has a major role in creating awareness among the people.
Yes, Dr. Gautam. Even bank officials, you see, even they have also been fooled by these scamsters.
There's a DGP, Director General of Police in Karnataka, who was scammed. Forget bank officers.
So requesting all the viewers and everyone, including ourselves as well, not to fall a prey to any of the online scamsters, to stay safe. If anything goes wrong, please report it immediately to the concerned authorities. Don't suffer in silence. And there is no such thing called as digital arrest. So stay safe, stay connected, and speak against all forms of abuse, what I'd like to share from my end. So, is there anything else you'd love to share from your end, which I didn't focus on? If you have anything from your end, which you'd like to bring out into the light, as you mentioned there, you have to focus on the truth, bring it out from the dark and place it in the light. So is there something which you'd like to share from your end before we sum?
I often speak to students in colleges. And in all my talks, in all my lectures, I talk of various things. Of course, like I said, passion is very important. Hard work is very important. Diligence is very important. And in journalism, like I said, 360-degree reporting, impartiality is very important. But the most important thing, what I always stress is integrity, integrity, integrity. That is the foundation of every profession. It might give you some, momentary highs. But if you talk to somebody, say in Karnataka, they might be able to make any allegation against you. But not even one person would be able to question my integrity. Even though I'm not in active journalism, people still look at me with respect, whether it's politicians or people in the film industry or any other industry, only for one reason, that is the unquestionable integrity that I've maintained all through my life. And I always tell people that, whether it's office politics or your family life or actual politics, nobody can harm you if you maintain the highest level of integrity.
That's a beautiful message. And that's very true what you've shared. That's very true. I mean, that's a big takeaway for all of us, to maintain integrity, no matter which profession you are. It could also be your personal life, your family life. It could be your professional life. Maintain integrity. It's good for you. It's healthy for each one of us. I think only then we will all, be enlightened in the right way. We'll understand the importance of our existence on this planet. So before we sum up, another one question that I'd like to put is, what are the changes that you've been seeing all through these years? So more than 2 decades, like or close to 3 decades. What are the changes that you've seen in journalism till date? And do you appreciate the present changes, or you're happy with the traditional practices? And how could you present it from your end? Put it from your
end. Traditionally, people had a lot of faith in journalists and journalism because they had some credibility. But today there is a question of, the believability factor. A lot of people do not believe what comes on television. They always try to cross-check what has appeared on, particularly on TV or digital media. But earlier, whatever would come in a newspaper during the print era would be taken as the gospel of truth. Of course, there used to be yellow journalists, they could be yellow papers. But I would say that, if some of the biggest changes are in technology, from print it went to electronic, from electronic it went to digital. Similarly, advertisements also moved from print to television, and now from television to digital. But the biggest change I see is in the trust factor. The trust factor in news has come down drastically.
Dr. Gautam, I really enjoyed the session. It was very, very interesting. I'd like to ask you many more questions. I respect your time. I'm sure you will share your time once more with us to enlighten us and empower us in the right way. More power to you. And I respect you more because you always focus on that one thing in life, integrity, no matter where you are. Right?
Yes.
I think each one of us can follow this from you as a takeaway from this session, is to be honest in whatever we do and to be, kind to others. Everything will fall in place. There will be, of course, challenges. You'll have to be ready for the challenges. No matter what you face, focus on integrity, right?
It was great talking to you, Andrea. Thanks a lot for having me on the show, and all the best.
Thank you so much, sir. Looking forward to many more interactions with you. Stay blessed and stay connected. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks to all the guests who are here. Thank you for your patience. With this, we'd like to sum up the session for today. My dear friends, do share this video with the right kind of people. You get a lot of information from these videos or from these podcasts, which we have on the International Fab Talks. Irrespective of International Fab Talks or any other good podcast, you can get a lot of information. Share this with others such that you create a lot of awareness. And when we create awareness in the world, we are doing our duty towards one another. I think you should really be that change you want to see in the world. Do something which improves the lives of others, not only yours, but also others as well. And focus on integrity. Don't forget to love yourself, love your family, and of course, protect the environment as well. With this, we'd like to sign off now from the International Fab Talks. If you like what the International Fab Talk team is doing, stay connected with us. Like, comment, subscribe, and share to the International Fab Talks. We would request each one of you to comment on this video. If you like what has been shared or you have any questions with regard to journalism, you could always put it up in the comments. We could answer them for you in the next session. With this, we'd like to sign off. Stay connected.